is your number one thing that you wish you could have done differently? And then I'll take that opportunity to re-paraphrase the question to give them an opportunity to save some face and continue to answer.
Yeah. You said that you love your brother and always will love your brother. You didn't tell me what the relationship is now, though.
The relationship is space at the moment. And, time heals all things, hopefully.
Any regrets?
No, I think I'm really proud of us, I'm so proud of my wife. Like, she safely delivered Archie during a period of time which was so cruel and so mean. And every single day I was coming back from work from London, I was coming back to my wife crying while breastfeeding Archie. That's coming from someone who wasn't reading anything. And as she touched on earlier, if she had read anything, she wouldn't be here now.
All right, here we go.
Megan shared with us that there was a conversation with you about Archie's skin tone. Mm-hmm. What was that conversation?
That conversation I'm never going to share. But at the time it was awkward. I was a bit shocked.
Can you tell us what the question was?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that.
Okay.
But that was right at the beginning, right?
Like, what will the baby look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
But that was right at the beginning when she wasn't going to get security, when members of my family were suggesting that she carries on acting because there's not enough money to pay for her and all this sort of stuff. Like, there was some real obvious signs before we even got married that this was going to be really hard.
Chase, I can hear you chewing.
I was trying to speed it up. Sorry.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Well, we see an immediate shift to internal dialogue here. And the cool thing about this is it happens during the question. So while he's being asked the question, there's a shift to internal dialogue, which means it's more likely to be deceptive. Second, there's a short giggle before he says he's not going to share this. And I think he's borrowing this behavior from his father, who does this a lot. We talked about this. And I think he's borrowing this behavior because he's borrowing it from an authority figure. This helps him to deliver the story with a little bit more authority. He says the words awkward and shocked. His hands are fidgeting like crazy. He's not comfortable sharing it, but shares it in a way to paint the picture that he exactly needs. He says, I'm not comfortable sharing it, and then shares it anyway, which I think is pretty interesting. And he says, when he's confirming, what will the kids look like? There's a single-sided shoulder shrug there, which indicates he lacks confidence in what he's saying. And the signs that he's talking about do not involve horrible conversation. He simply adds those in afterward, the other signs that he's talking about. He adds them in afterward to give the first thing more credibility. And I'll give you an example of how this has worked on you in the past. Smoking is not permitted on this flight, and federal law prohibits tampering with the smoke detectors in the lavatories. Smoking is not against federal law, but those are attached together to make you associate smoking in the airplane bathroom with violating federal law, but that is not together. So I'm taking a bunch of things and putting that after to associate credibility with truthful things with the one major thing. Greg, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, so here's one of those rare times that we don't see the same thing. Chase, when I see the guy looking down to, now remember, I'm an eye movement guy, so I'm all over eye movement. Yes, he is looking down, but instead of being down and to the left, he's down and to the right. And down to the right is where we store emotion. If this is truly an emotional moment for him, it would be there. He would be talking from fact. Now, he may have to access back up if he were telling us the words used. But the feelings, when you're talking about feelings, and I'll get a great example again. Think about the last funeral you went to. Think about the last emotional moment in your life. Watch your eyes drift heavy. They make your head heavy. They make your whole body language shift. So I trust that body language in this case. And then he does a contempt half smile and exposes his teeth, which is kind of out of baseline for him because he doesn't show his teeth a whole lot for some reason, whatever that reason is. He adapts it awkward. I agree. He adapts very much there. And then he says, that was right at the beginning, right? Tongue jut. This is not, and this is a transference. Let's assume this happened. I don't see a reason not to right here. Let's assume it happened. Oprah and Meghan are talking about Archie. He's not talking about Archie. He's talking about her. He's saying somebody said something about her and what color his kids would be. The transference then, of course, is yes, that's Archie. But I don't think this conversation occurred about an unborn baby. It occurred prior to marriage. And I would be interested to hear what he says and see if I'm right there. But I think this is the beginning of the fracture. And this is what brings that 12-year-old kid back into the picture. So for me, I see here that I believe somebody said something to him along those lines. And he's not telling us exact words, but all the body language is there for me to believe that somebody did say this to him. Now, I'll be interested in who and where it came from. Scott.
All right. I think I don't know exactly who it came from, but I got a pretty good guess. It's
Me
either his
too. Pretty good guess.
father or his brother. And here's why I think that. Chase, I agree with you. Because we've heard him say right, because he's around Meghan all the time, and apparently she's the one that says that all the time. That's not something that I've never heard a royal speak that way. I don't follow him and all that, but from what I've heard, I've never heard him say right a lot in those confirmation rites. Now, having said that, one example is the tone of his accent has changed here. It's gotten stronger. It's gotten thicker. When people go hang around people they like, for example, I know when Greg's had people in from out of town that are like family because his accent gets heavier. When my wife Amber, when she goes to visit her friend Cindy and Chattanooga, she comes back, I can hardly understand her because they're both from Mississippi and they get together and all those people get together. I don't know what I can't understand her. The accent's so heavy when she gets back. So what he's doing, he's remembering that conversation. And as he's dropping back into that as he remembers those people or the person that talked to him. He remembers that accent, how heavy it was. That's one reason I think it might be his dad, because his dad's is really heavy. And that's what it reminded me of in the first place, because for some reason I always catch on to accents and listen to them, and I can pick those things out for some odd reason. And his brother's is heavy, but it's not as thick, I guess you'd say, as his dad's. His brother's, I would say, is a little bit more shiny than his father's. His father's is just there. I mean, it's thick and it's on. So I think it's one of those two, because he's mimicking that by accident. It's coming out of him as he's remembering that. So, and I agree with you, Greg. I don't necessarily think they might have said, what are the kids going to look like? But it might have been, he assumed it was an attack on Meghan going forward with that. That's what I think happened there, because he seemed, to me, he looked truthful and it was fairly fluid with his answer, but he was stopping. But I think he might have been ready for that, because I think he knew she asked that, and I think he was ready to answer that. But I think it was either the father or the brother, and I think they did indeed ask it. All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so what I see is a slow blink of acceptance, agreement when the idea of the conversation is brought up. There's a slow blink, which for me is an acceptance of that event happening. Yes, internal thought. He says he's not going to reveal the question, but then he does really reveal the question. It doesn't take much to get him out of it, which is, what will the kids look like? Chase, yeah, you could be onto something there with that shoulder shrug, that it's maybe not quite that. It's something else. Good catch on that. Here's what nails it for me, is he says it was awkward and he was a bit shocked. Now, often people would look at that and go, well, that's kind of minimizing. What do you mean it's awkward and a bit shocked? For aristocracy, for royalty, for something to be awkward, that is the pinnacle. To be a bit shocked, that means it's like all hell is breaking loose here, because you are never awkward and you would never be shocked by anything, because that would show a lack of control, a loss of being able to predict what's going on. So for him to say It was awkward, and I was a bit shocked. That's huge, I would suggest. So I think something did go on here. At the end of it, we get again that Meghan look of vindication over to Oprah. Hey, do you see what's been going on? Do you see how this has been? And then he says it was really hard. And Chase, you'll love this. Bitter taste in the mouth as he talks about it being really hard. And then there's a snort out as well that Peach does as well. So bitter taste in the mouth, snort out, like doesn't like the taste and the smell of what went on here. So I truly think something went on here. I do believe something went on. Yeah, for sure. There.
Okay.
Hey guys, I think we all saw something there. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Meghan shared with us that there was a conversation with you about Archie's skin tone. What was that conversation?
That conversation I'm never going to share. But at the time it was awkward. I was a bit shocked.
Can you tell us what the question was?
No, I'm not comfortable sharing that.
Okay.
But that was right at the beginning, right?
Like, what will the baby look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
Yeah, what will the kids look like?
But that was right at the beginning when she wasn't going to get security, when members of my family were suggesting that she carries on acting because there's not enough money to pay for her and all this sort of stuff. Like, there was some real obvious signs before we even got married that this was going to be really hard.
All right.
What you've described here today, being trapped and not even being aware of it, and all the things that had transpired, and then she comes into your life, and then you're doing therapy. Do you think in some way she saved you?
Yeah, without question. There was a bigger purpose. There was other forces at play, I think, throughout this whole process. I'm the last person to think, ooh,
Yeah.
But it's undeniable when these things have happened, where the overlap is. So, yeah, she did, without question, she saved.
And I think that's lovely. I would disagree. I think he saved all of us. Right? He ultimately called it and was like, we've got to find a way for us, for Archie. And you made a decision that certainly saved my life. And saved all of us. But, you need to want to be saved.
All right. I'll go first on this one. This is what I was talking about at the very beginning. We see that thread of narcissism that's run through here. This is where she turns it all and puts all the blame that's happened to everything where that goes, because it doesn't look like it's going well, or it doesn't make them look good. Everything that's happening, she puts it on him. He saved us. He did this. He made the decision to save us, and we have to want to be saved. That is, for me, that's almost just the peaking of narcissism right there, where she turns the whole thing around and just dumps it on him. Classic. I think it's awesome. I mean, it's not great, but I mean, awesome as in what a tactical move that was. I mean, brilliant, really, from a narcissistic standpoint to make sure your ego stays intact. Great job on the narcissistic front. Wow. Okay, Chase, what do you got?
I don't have much. This is like a season finale of The Bachelor interview. But I'd like you to go back and just when you watch this again here, right at the end of this video, before you subscribe, imagine that Oprah asked him a question of what he thinks about his mother's death, and listen to the answer. I think there's more coming out here, because if you watch the full interview, this question has some depth to it, and it had some what's called pretexting or priming to it a few minutes before this question came out. So I think there's an answer here that's got some latent information here that's not just about what's being said. Greg?
Yeah, I think you're dead on with that, with the priming, getting him to a position where he's more liable to talk. Here's an interesting thing. I heard both of you guys, or many of you guys, say earlier that Oprah isn't harsh or cruel. Really? That's one of the harshest and cruelest questions I've ever heard asked. You're sitting next to your very pregnant wife and ask her, don't you think she rescued you? Well, what do you think the answer should be in this case? There really is no option to say no in this case. He's in the road. He's got to do whatever he needs to do. Watch him go down to the left and think about it before he says no, before he says yes. I'm like, really? I'm smart enough to figure that one out. If I have a pregnant wife I've just gone through all this stuff with, and I have to think about it, it's actually kind of amusing for me. But as I watch through it, he goes then over down to the right and contemplates and thinks, and his hand is at his crotch. He's in the modified fig leaf again, and he's regulating. He's got that other hand over to the side. The thing that bothers me a little bit about this, that I think is something I would watch in his body language moving forward, when he talks, once she says he saved us, and he's saying whatever it is he says, there's no softness in his face. I think when people are saying, oh, you're right, yes, she did save me, there would be softness in your face. Now, I know he was a soldier, but I was a soldier for 20 years. I love my wife. If she said something, if I were really saying something I thought, you'd see softness in my face as much as I have. So there's some interesting little indicators in this body language, but wow, Oprah, that's like a punch in the face with him sitting right there next to his wife. An interesting one to see. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so if you want to end a piece of primetime TV, end with a grand narrative. And that's what happens here. Other forces at play. They evoke spirit, gods. Oh, first of all, there's the idea of being unconsciously trapped. Therefore, you can't, the gods aren't helping you, your own mind isn't helping you, but the spirits and the gods come in. Also, there's the release of therapy as well. So unconsciously trapped, you have therapy, suddenly there's a release, and yes, the spirits and the gods help you. The spirit here is probably something being hinted at there around Diana, the idea of her looking over him. British are going to love that idea, because she is the nearest thing to a goddess people have seen. The most famous woman in the world, potentially, named after a goddess, the goddess of childbirth. So, good evocation there to happen. The idea, the word undeniable is used. It's undeniable. Well, you could deny it, but since you say it so strongly and it's at the end of the show, go on, let's go with it. Fantastic. And then, you might think it's over. But here's what happens. Yes, she elevates him. Meghan elevates him beyond therapy, beyond the spirits, beyond gods, and says, no, it's all him. So now she's elevated him into a super godlike situation. And there they are in paradise. The hero's journey with the gods.
Oh,
Exactly.
my God.
The reluctant hero.
It's beautiful.
Star Wars.
It's
Wow.
beautiful. So great end to a show there. Fantastic grand narrative job.
Yeah. Now, as at the in video 3, we left something out specifically. We all talked about it and said, "Look, let's not talk about that."
People that will watch this video, these 4 men are trying to analyze Meghan, Harry, Oprah interview. They are trying to use. I think they are analyzers. They analyze videos. They analyze. They know body language. They know signs. So they are trying to analyze this video. But I'm going to be using it in so many topics. When I'm referring to others' videos, because video is like when you are writing and they say you refer to this author, I think that's what they are doing. I'm going to Shining Light TV station, London, worldwide. I'm going to be using it to analyze the Meghan interview and Oprah Winfrey and Harry.
That way you can go back and take a look and see if you can find. A lot of people got the last time we did this. A lot of people nailed it. Let's see if you can go back to video 3 and find out what it was we left out in this. All right. Yeah. And also subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. If you're a first time watcher, go ahead and subscribe. And all right, fellas, I think that's it. That was a good one.
That's a good one.
See you next time.
See you all. Bye now.
most advanced wearable AI for vision impairment.
It's like being a litigator. Eventually, maybe all you have to do is use your name.
Yeah. Then I go, when I had thyroid cancer, I got to go back and do scans to make sure it hadn't come back but they took my thyroid out, right? So I'm at getting my scan done, and the girl is like, so what do you do? I saw I'm a body language expert. She goes, oh, that sounds, that sounds good. So then I'm thinking she's in here doing the scan stuff. She's into all this, the minutia of neurological everything. So I go on this almost a rant of, yes, well, it is fascinating.